The pounding of rain against the window pane drowned the empty school in the thick darkness of night. Under the dim glow of the hallway light, Lauren leaned against the classroom door, her breath quick and shallow, chest heaving with a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. In front of her, Dylan stood silent as well, his gaze heavy with all the things left unsaid, and perhaps with all the longing he had kept hidden for so long. The space between them was now measured only in breaths. Outside, the rain continued to howl. Inside, the entire world seemed to shrink into a single, suffocating stare that stretched on and on. The soft scent of perfume on Lauren's neck mingled with the warmth of her skin, the cool dampness of the air, and the lingering aroma of coffee on Dylan's shirt. He tightened his grip ever so slightly, wondering if he should take another step. Wondering if this fragile boundary could truly hold back the desire burning inside them, or if it would shatter beneath the weight of loneliness, regret, and the hunger that had been left unsatisfied for too long. "Lauren," Dylan whispered, his voice thick and hoarse. In that moment, their eyes blazed with unspoken words, speaking for everything they had always tried to suppress. Dylan's hand rose, trembling as he cupped Lauren's cheek, his thumb tracing the delicate curve of her face, then paused, hesitating on the razor-thin line between forbidden love and responsibility. Lauren closed her eyes, her entire body trembling at the dangerous closeness. She knew she should walk away, knew that with just one careless move, nothing would ever be the same again. But Dylan's breath, Dylan's touch, the wild beating of his heart, all of it made Lauren forget herself, forget right and wrong, leaving only the desperate yearning to live honestly, if only for this one night in the rain. The classroom door was firmly closed, as if locking away the prying eyes of the world outside. And right there, amidst the storm's swirling music, they let their feelings cross every boundary, even if only for the briefest, most stolen moment. A week before that fateful rainy night, everything between Lauren and Dylan was nothing more than the most ordinary social interactions. Lauren was still the model teacher, meticulous in every gesture, always keeping a respectful distance from all parents. As for Dylan, despite the weariness in his eyes, the look of a man carrying the weight of raising a child alone, he always maintained a polite, composed appearance. But that day, the atmosphere felt somehow different. Lauren had just finished her last class of the day when she received a message from the school office. "Ms. Hartley, Ethan Monroe's parent would like to schedule a private meeting about his academic performance. Meeting room 3-5 p.m. today." Lauren let out a soft, relieved sigh, thinking it would be just another routine discussion. Yet when she stepped into the small meeting room at the end of the hallway, she stopped short. Dylan was already there, shirt sleeves rolled up, hair slightly tousled, holding a stack of papers still scented with fresh ink. He looked up and smiled at her, a smile that wasn't overly broad but held something different, something deep and warm. Dylan's eyes caught Lauren's in a fleeting moment, but seemed unwilling to let go. In the silence of the room, only the slow turning of the ceiling fan and the sudden acceleration of Lauren's heartbeat could be heard. She sat down across from him, the distance between them just proper enough to be formal, yet so close that Lauren felt anything but safe. Dylan spoke first, his deep voice laced with a hint of hesitation. "I'm really sorry for bothering you outside of regular hours. But lately, Ethan, he seems more distant from me. I know his grades are slipping. Could you please tell me what's really happening?" Lauren met Dylan's eyes, a gaze that was direct, yet filled with worry and a touch of helplessness only a single father could know. Her heart softened, and she replied as gently as she could, holding on to her professionalism. "Ethan seems quieter than the other students, but he's still diligent. He just needs more time, and perhaps a bit more attention from his family." Dylan nodded. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, unintentionally revealing the sinewy veins on his tanned forearms, making Lauren look away in sudden embarrassment. She realized, almost in shock, that she was following every movement of the man in front of her, from his eyes to the way he lightly clenched his hands, even the faint trace of coffee on his breath. The meeting lasted longer than planned. Academic topics gradually gave way to conversations about family, life, and the restless nights Dylan had endured since his divorce. Lauren, without thinking, also revealed a few personal details about her own sleeplessness, the emptiness that filled her small apartment every night, and her worry that she might never become the strong woman society expected her to be. Somewhere during their conversation, Lauren couldn't pinpoint exactly when their eyes stopped avoiding each other. Each glance lingered a little longer, grew deeper, held more than words could say. Dylan listened in silence, occasionally smiling in a way that made Lauren wonder what she might have said to capture his attention so intently. At one moment, as Lauren reached to retrieve a file from the table, her fingers accidentally brushed Dylan's hand. It was the lightest touch, like a tiny electric shock running through her. Dylan didn't pull away, his eyes locked with hers, the silence between them growing impossibly thick. Lauren felt her cheeks flush, her heart racing, a strange, dangerous sensation she had never faced before. "Are you okay?" Dylan whispered, his voice so low only the two of them could hear. Lauren awkwardly pulled her hand back, forcing a small smile. "I'm fine. It's just, I guess I'm a little sensitive to everything today." That answer, as vague as it was, felt like a quiet confession, just clear enough for both of them to understand, but too dangerous for either to say out loud. The air in the room grew heavier, saturated with feelings yet to take shape, a heady mix of anticipation and intrigue. The meeting ended only when night had already fallen. Dylan stood first, slowly pulling his jacket back on. He turned, thanked Lauren with a slight bow. But before leaving, he paused by the door, his gaze lingering on her face, as if wanting to say something more but stopping himself at the last moment. Lauren sat there for a long while in the empty room, her fingers still trembling from that accidental touch. In her mind, the image of Dylan, his smile, his eyes, the warmth of his hand, replayed again and again, stretching on into the late hours of the night. She knew, without a doubt, that some invisible boundary had just been crossed, whether by accident or design. That night, Lauren couldn't sleep at all. She realized she had let both her heart and her body wander into a dangerous forbidden zone she herself didn't dare name. A sudden downpour swept across the city late Wednesday afternoon, plunging the sky into darkness and sending cold gusts of wind whipping through the empty corridors of the high school. Lauren stood silently in the classroom, her hand absently smoothing over unfinished test papers, her mind heavy with thoughts about Ethan and the strange, persistent stirrings Dylan had awakened in her over the past week. The rain grew louder, battering the tin roof with relentless force, building a wall of sound that sealed the classroom off from the rest of the world. The yellow light cast Lauren's shadow across the blackboard, and the hushed, isolated atmosphere seemed to stretch her emotions into infinity. A gentle knock at the door startled Lauren. She turned and saw Dylan, his shirt damp, hair slick from the rain, eyes bright with worry and a hint of awkwardness. "I'm sorry for coming back so late. Ethan texted me to say he went home with a friend right after school, but I realized I left my phone in the meeting room." Lauren nodded and smiled, not sure if she was happy, surprised, or if a part of her had been hoping Dylan would show up tonight. "It's all right, I just finished up too." At first, the air between them was thick with awkwardness, only the sound of the rain urging them to stay together a little longer. Lauren carefully packed her books and papers into her bag, but noticed Dylan still standing there, his eyes quietly following her every movement. Neither of them spoke. All they could hear was each other's breathing and the steady drum of rain against the window. "Are you cold?" Dylan asked, slipping off his jacket and moving closer. He didn't wait for Lauren's answer, just gently draped it over her shoulders. Lauren shivered, partly from the chill, partly from the unexpected tenderness. Dylan's hands rested on her shoulders, strong yet so gentle. The warmth seeped through the fabric, sending a shiver right through her heart. A long pause hung in the air. The two of them stood by the window, watching streaks of rain stretch endlessly across the darkened schoolyard. They talked quietly, about lonely nights, about the emptiness of shouldering every responsibility alone as an adult. The conversation swept Lauren away, so much that she didn't realize when she had moved so close to Dylan, their shoulders touching, their breaths mingling in the cool, humid air. Lauren turned, her gaze meeting Dylan's. So close now she could see flecks of light in his eyes, feel the heat of his breath against her cheek. She hesitated, wanting to step back, but Dylan reached out and gently held her arm, his eyes soft but unwavering, as if asking, "Do you want to stop?" In that moment, the sound of rain, the ticking clock, even the whir of the ceiling fan disappeared. Only their pounding hearts remained. Dylan leaned down, his lips hovering just a breath away from Lauren's, just a subtle nod, and every boundary would crumble. Lauren closed her eyes, feeling his lips mere centimeters from hers, his breath quick and shallow, his hand still lightly holding her shoulder. But just then, a bolt of lightning flashed outside, followed by a deafening clap of thunder that made Lauren jerk her eyes open and step back. Their lips never touched, but just one more heartbeat, and neither of them could have turned back. Dylan stepped away, his eyes still filled with longing, tinged with regret, as though he'd just lost something precious. "I'm sorry, I should," Dylan stammered, his hand falling away from Lauren's shoulder, though it lingered for a moment longer on her arm, reluctant to let go. Lauren could only smile, trying to hide her own trembling. "It's all right. Honestly, I'm not sure I would have stopped if it weren't for that thunder." They both laughed quietly, a small sound in the dim room that suddenly felt like a sweet secret, belonging only to these two lonely adults. The rain hadn't let up, but inside that classroom, everything had changed. From that moment when they almost crossed the line, Lauren knew she could never see Dylan as just another parent again. And on his way home, Dylan was haunted all night by the memory of her breath, her eyes, and the hunger that neither of them had yet satisfied. Just a day after that rainy night, nothing between Lauren and Dylan could return to normal. Fleeting glances in the hallway, shy smiles among the crowd of parents, every sign of restraint only made the longing inside them grow stronger. The school-wide parent-teacher meeting took place at the end of the week. Dozens of parents scattered across the small auditorium, while Lauren tried to hide her exhaustion after a week of sleepless nights and strange feelings she never dared to name. Dylan arrived late. He stood at the back of the room, tall and unmistakable among the crowd, his dark shirt emphasizing his broad shoulders and composed, mature presence. Lauren only dared to steal a brief glance, but Dylan's eyes caught hers and lingered, as if communicating something words could never express. After the group meeting, parents were called one by one into the teachers' room for private conferences about their children. Lauren waited for Ethan's turn, her heart beating faster, not sure if it was due to professional duty or another emotion quietly taking root. When the door closed, leaving only the two of them inside, the space suddenly felt stifling. Dylan sat across from her, his gaze gentle yet resolute. He placed a stack of papers on the table and looked straight at Lauren. "Is Ethan all right? Be honest, Lauren. If you notice anything wrong, please tell me. Not as his teacher, but as a friend, or maybe even more if you'd allow it." Lauren felt her heart skip a beat. In that enclosed room, the hum of the fan blended with quickened breaths. Both fumbled with the shrinking distance between them. As Lauren handed over the documents, her fingers brushed Dylan's hand. It was such a light touch, yet neither of them pulled away. Instead, Dylan gently squeezed Lauren's hand, his thumb tracing along her soft skin, every subtle movement speaking volumes of suppressed longing. They both fell silent, a few seconds stretching into what felt like eternity. Dylan's hand was large and warm, holding Lauren's hand without a word. His eyes locked on hers, deep and sincere, as if asking, "Do you really want to stop here?" Lauren didn't reply, but she didn't pull her hand away either. Instead, her own fingers began to entwine with his, feeling the strength and masculine presence of Dylan pulsing through her skin. The air between them was thick with tension. Just a tilt forward, just a breath against her ear, and all their boundaries would fall apart. Dylan leaned in closer, his low, husky voice whispering in her ear, sending a shiver down Lauren's spine. "I've been thinking about you a lot. Last night and all day today. You have no idea how much you haunt me." That confession left Lauren completely undone. She tried to say something, but Dylan's lips hovered near her cheek, not quite a kiss, just his hot breath brushing against her delicate skin, making her whole body tremble with unnamed desire. Lauren struggled to regain her composure, inching back a little but still keeping her hand in Dylan's, unwilling to let go of this rare, intoxicating connection. "We can't, Dylan. If anyone finds out about this, I'll lose everything." Dylan nodded softly, releasing a long, quiet sigh. He let go of her hand but held her gaze, full of longing. "I won't ever do anything that would make you regret this. But if we're only friends, I'm afraid I won't be able to stop there." A tense silence stretched between them, delicate as a thread about to snap. Lauren knew she shouldn't, but her hand still tingled with the warmth of Dylan's touch, every finger trembling with emotion. The meeting ended when the sound of someone passing outside the door broke the spell. Lauren quickly withdrew her hand, straightened her papers, and concealed the lingering feelings left hanging in the air. Dylan stood, offering her one last, deep look, a glance that seemed to reach right into her soul. After Dylan left, Lauren sat quietly in the room, her hand still shaking. It felt as though his touch had left an invisible imprint on her skin, and inside, an unnamed yearning only grew, stronger and stronger. That weekend, Lauren received a message from Dylan late Saturday afternoon. "If you don't mind, I'd like to invite you over to discuss Ethan's studies. He just recovered from being sick, and I feel like he's still a bit lost. I don't know if there's anything I could do better." Lauren hesitated for a moment, but curiosity, and more honestly, the persistent longing from their past encounters at school, quickly overcame reason. Night fell swiftly, the city's air turning cold, golden streetlights flickering through the branches. Lauren chose a simple dress, pulled on a light cardigan, dabbed a bit of perfume on her wrists and behind her ears, then caught herself smiling shyly at her reflection in the mirror. When she arrived, Dylan greeted her at the door with a soft smile, his eyes bright beneath the house lights. The place was warm, simple, and tidy, a faint aroma of coffee blending with the subtle scent of wood. Ethan sat in a small study, focused on his homework, beaming when he saw his teacher. Lauren spent a little time chatting with him, offering encouragement, then wished him good night. As Ethan's bedroom door closed, the entire apartment seemed to fall under a peculiar silence, leaving only Lauren and Dylan. Dylan made Lauren a cup of hot tea and invited her to sit on the sofa by the window that looked out to the tiny garden beyond the porch. They sat close together, knees nearly touching beneath a thin blanket. The quiet was broken only by the gentle warmth radiating from their bodies. It was as if the entire room was reduced to the rhythm of their breaths. The conversation began with Ethan, then gradually drifted into personal territory. Dylan spoke about lonely evenings, the anxiety of being a father afraid of disappointing his child. Lauren shared about her cold weekends, her empty apartment, the silent dinners she ate alone. They laughed, fell quiet, then gazed at each other for long moments in the mellow gold of the lamp. At one point, Dylan turned, his hand unintentionally landing on Lauren's thigh as he handed her the blanket. Lauren felt the warmth of those strong fingers seeping through the fabric, her heart racing, cheeks flushing. She couldn't tell if it was the tea or something else. She didn't pull away. Instead, her hand settled over his, holding it there for a single breathless moment. The world shrank to just their breathing, their heartbeats, and an unspoken longing neither dared to name. Dylan squeezed Lauren's hand gently, his eyes tender yet burning with restrained desire. "Do you ever feel that life is too short if we don't seize what we truly want?" Lauren didn't answer, simply gazed deep into his eyes, understanding everything Dylan meant without a single word. In that instant, Dylan leaned down, his lips brushing her forehead. A kiss so light, so gentle, it sent a tremor through her entire body. Lauren closed her eyes, silent, feeling his breath on her cheek, his lips gliding through her hair and pausing at her ear, where he whispered in a rough, aching voice, "You drive me crazy with how much I miss you." Lauren's hand instinctively moved to Dylan's chest, feeling the quick, heavy beat of his heart through his shirt. Dylan gripped her hand, pulling Lauren closer, holding her softly yet securely. The space between their bodies vanished, replaced by heat and silent gestures laden with meaning. But just then, Ethan's door creaked open. Lauren quickly let go, Dylan moved back, and they both exchanged a small, sheepish laugh, part embarrassment, part regret, and a rare mutual understanding only two lonely adults could share. Ethan simply asked, "Dad, where's my water?" Dylan jumped up to pour water for his son, while Lauren collected herself, smoothing out her dress. Once Ethan was asleep again, Lauren stood to leave. Dylan walked her to the door, lingering on the threshold for a long time. In the chill and darkness of the late night, they looked at each other, long, deep glances, as if trying to hold on to every moment together. Lauren softly said, "I'll remember tonight." Dylan squeezed her hand gently, saying nothing more. That single touch was enough to keep Lauren's heart fluttering all the way home. Even late into the night, she could still feel the warmth of his hand, the taste of his eyes, and the ache of desire left smoldering in her chest. That night, Lauren realized the boundary between her and Dylan, if it still existed, was as thin as the mist on the window, and with just a single breath, a single touch, every limit would shatter. Returning to her small apartment as the city lights flickered on, Lauren didn't bother turning on the main lights. She left only the faint glow of the bedside lamp spilling across the curtains. She stood for a long time by the window, watching the last raindrops clinging to the glass, her mind endlessly replaying every moment she'd shared with Dylan that evening. The warmth of his hand on her thigh, the powerful beat of his heart beneath her palm when she had unconsciously touched his chest, the gentle graze of his lips on her forehead that had sent a jolt through her body as if struck by lightning. Lauren sat down on the edge of the bed, letting herself fall back, both arms wrapped tightly around her pillow as if trying to preserve some trace of Dylan's warmth. She closed her eyes and let her body relax, surrendering to the wave of emotions, part joy, part ache, part longing so intense it hurt. In the dim light, Lauren could feel every inch of her skin still marked by the memory of Dylan's touch, his lips not yet fully realized. Every time she thought of his eyes, his smile, his whispers, and the heat of his breath on her cheek, her whole body grew feverish, the yearning so fierce she just wanted to be near him again, to shatter every remaining barrier between them. All night, Lauren tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Any time she started to drift off, the emptiness of missing a gentle embrace or the lightest touch would pull her back into the void. She picked up her phone, hesitating as the screen lit up, her finger hovering over Dylan's name. After a long moment of indecision, she finally managed to send a brief message. "I'm home now. Thank you for a very special evening." Just a few minutes later, Dylan replied, "Me too, Lauren. I can still feel the warmth of you on my hand. Tonight, I'm afraid I'll be lying awake just from missing you." Just that single line made Lauren's heart flutter wildly. She replied, flustered, "Get some sleep, you have to take Ethan to school tomorrow. I'll try to sleep too." But Lauren knew that neither of them would rest easy tonight. It felt as if only a thin layer of air separated their bodies. Just one more touch, one honest confession, and all these pent-up emotions would ignite like fire. Dylan was no better. He sat quietly in his living room, staring at his shadow cast on the wall, his hand still tingling with the softness and warmth of Lauren's skin lingering there. He closed his eyes, imagining his lips brushing lightly along her neck, holding her in the darkness, listening to the sound of her rapid breaths mixed with the quiet laughter of two grown-ups trying desperately to hide everything from their children and the world outside. That night, two lonely souls in two different apartments lay awake, restless in their hunger and in the longing that had been left unfed. All they could do was send each other a few secret messages, sometimes just a smiling emoji, a tiny heart, or a goodnight wish that sounded like a whispered caress drifting through the darkness. But Lauren knew for sure, if these feelings kept building, one day soon, no boundary would be strong enough to keep them on the edge of the forbidden. And when that day came, would they dare to step into the night beyond all boundaries? Rumors about the unusually close relationship between Lauren and Dylan began to swirl around the school after the parent-teacher conference. A few colleagues asked subtle questions. The principal reminded Lauren about the ethical limits of her profession, while Dylan struggled to explain himself to Ethan every time his son shot him a furtive, questioning glance, one that seemed to ask what could not be said out loud. Lauren thought that by keeping her distance for a while, things would calm down. But the more she tried to avoid Dylan, the more the longing inside her, throughout her heart and her body, grew. It slipped into her mornings before class, into every chime of her phone with a new message, into every chance encounter with his familiar cologne in a deserted hallway. That evening, with the city lights sparkling outside, Lauren stood for a long time before the mirror, searching her own reflection. The innocence in her eyes as a young teacher was gone, replaced by the bold gaze of a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and was willing to pay the price for it. The phone rang, a message from Dylan. "Come outside, I'm waiting for you behind the school." Lauren barely had time to grab a light jacket, heart pounding wildly as she drove off into the night, thinking of nothing but Dylan and the silent promise that had always lingered between them. The back of the school was shrouded in darkness, lit only by a distant golden glow from the guard's office, and Dylan stood there, tall, his eyes burning with longing beneath the young crescent moon. When Lauren arrived, Dylan said nothing. He just looked at her for a long moment, his gaze so deep it seemed to drink in every bit of longing they'd endured. Without another second's hesitation, Dylan pulled Lauren into his arms, holding her so tightly that she felt as if the world outside had simply vanished. She could hear her own heartbeat blending with Dylan's ragged breaths, feel the heat radiating from his body, melting away every last worry. Dylan's lips found Lauren's in a kiss both desperate and devouring, as if to make up for every time they'd had to stop, every almost they'd never crossed. His hands caressed her face, her neck, her shoulders, gentle and yet fierce, the passion pent up for too long finally erupting between them. Lauren didn't hold back either. She clung to Dylan, her whole body trembling in his embrace, a mixture of the familiar and the thrillingly new. They kissed for what felt like forever, each kiss a declaration that there was no going back. The night was cold, their breaths burning hot, fingers interlaced, bodies entangled in every touch, every muffled gasp in that private space. Lauren could feel electricity shooting through her with every caress, every boundary now nothing but a distant memory. At last, Dylan paused, pressing his face into Lauren's neck as he whispered, "I'm sorry, I've waited too long to hold you like this. I can't stop anymore." Lauren choked back tears, not sure if they were from happiness, fear, or the sensation of being finally loved after so many tortured days and nights. "Me too. I want to be true to what I feel, even if it's only once, Dylan." They stood locked in each other's arms for a long time in the darkness of the school grounds, a place that had once been the very last stronghold of rules and morality. There was nothing left to hide, nothing left to hold them back. Lauren let her emotions take over. She was no longer the model teacher, Dylan was no longer just the responsible parent. In that moment, they were simply two lonely souls who had found each other in the maze of the forbidden, giving everything they had once denied themselves. And when dawn was near, the two of them walked out of the darkness hand in hand, knowing that things would never be easy from now on. But at least, they had dared to love, dared to live truthfully, and had crossed the most dangerous line of their lives, all for the sake of this love.